He pulled up and talked to me out front when I told him.
He was protesting in front of
It's in your notebook.
I locked your door.
Okay, good.
I just told her I locked her door. I think she's trying to get in there.
She has her keys.
Oh.
If they're on her neck, she has. Oh.
That's your garden. Yours supposed to be blue garden. I feel like mine will ever grow with all this rain.
So, everything good? I got your positions set with Donna and Bryn.
Oh.
So it's back in the grant. Like
Was it
it's supposed
not?
to be. Yeah.
So it got taken out again?
Well, but it's back in.
75 tomatillo plants.
Right behind you. You're good. You're good.
Tomatillos are like
I feel like we're going to be sitting. No, what I mean, like on the field together. At least he's more comfortable. Yes, I'm sure. Other students are I hate those chills. Well, I'm sure your feet have to be Nope. Should have had you.
he's coming. He hung. Yes, he walked in the front.
Oh, okay.
Donna, we have more chairs. Do you think we should try to bring
I
it?
can bring a few more. There's plenty.
Did anybody want to sign up for public comment? Anyone want to sign up for public comment, or are y'all just going to comment? Does anybody? You get 5 minutes, the floor will be yours if you sign up. I like to hear myself talk about it. I guess I could.
Yeah.
He wasn't happy when he stand for the SAU that time. We told him to go to the town office on Monday morning.
Just attach it to your truck.
Brother said to bring my trailer down, but
I like the curtain in the bathroom.
We should probably. That's gonna freak me out. At least like now, like before you could be in there and you do what was it?
It should be a locked door.
Should be a lot of things.
spread out light shall include power of Frank and like this. I'm not a lawyer and I can read the taxes. Lawyers must not be what they used to be.
Justin, I'll forget pizza.
Pizza again?
Or dinner. Just not too late that Daryl and I already talked.
Are you gonna put this
You and I
out?
already talked. You want to streamline this?
We should be able to.
Hey, Cole, if you're gonna talk about the house, if you're hungry and see what's on.
I ate dinner late, but I should be in front of the fire. That's all I'm saying.
Oh,
I haven't read all the schools, but I don't think I saw anything over here. We're not in the school.
I'm just saying, take my chance.
It's a margarita.
just put it in a cup. Nobody will know.
Is that what you do?
You never know.
Is that what you do?
Never know.
She's in a good mood.
It's Friday night, she's still smiling.
I did stop at Shaw's earlier. Just saying.
You similar to my text yesterday.
Oh, don't.
I don't know. Did you tell me? I don't remember.
I'm sitting at graduation and I watched it and I looked down and it's,
Oh no, you didn't tell me about that.
Yes, they told us after.
yes.
That's
I
Carrie.
didn't hear it. Oh, that's right. We were talking about that after.
I said it again today. We just need to let you go through the building. Just go with little stickies. Just put them on.
What's this for? You'll fuck it up a little bit.
I'm not really sure.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, the SAU 43 school board meeting on June 16th at 6 p.m. Do a roll call.
Go first.
Darrell Jones.
Fritz Holding Senior.
Sim Beard here.
Jenna Darley here.
Steve Morris here. All right, please rise for the,
Stephen Emery
Oh.
will not be here this evening, he has no attendance. Thank you.
please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag, there's two of them.
There was one of them.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none. I have no one sign up for public comment. Reminder though, when we talk about an issue, you are allowed to raise your hand. I'll call on you and then you can speak to the issue that we are discussing. With that note, we'll start off with one more chance. Anybody want to do public comment? I just want to make sure because that was 4 minutes ago I checked last. All right, we'll start. First agenda item, the Career Technical Education Center renovation land issue. with the town. So I would like our budget analyst, Mr. Keeman, to kind of just go over the situation that we have right now with the land to build the new ag building on. We're stalled at that point, so.
So we have, back in 1977, the town got a grant to establish a athletic recreational complex in town. And the school district and the town entered into an agreement, it's called a control use agreement, which gave them the right to maintain what you see there, the tennis courts, the basketball, well, the tennis courts have been removed, but the basketball courts and several other things, the fields, the track, and all of that. And it's, when we did all the planning for the Career Tech Center, we spent a year planning, and one of the changes made was to move the new natural science center onto the property in the back left corner of the parking lot. And we did all of our research of deeds and all of that, and there's no restrictions on our land. So we went forward and planned that, seeing that after lots of planning, we found that to be way less expensive to build on than where we had originally planned to build. So by the tune of about $500,000 in savings. So we went forward, and no one through the whole planning process brought to our attention that there was that particular corner of the land that we planned it on had this restriction from the Department of Interior, U.S. Department of Interior, that it could only be used for recreational purposes. Now there's options built into the law to convert land from a park use to other uses. There's exceptions built into the law and stuff. It's just, it takes a little bit of time to go through to get approval from the Parks Department of the U.S. government. So I have been working with the city town manager on this, but as of right now, it looks like he hasn't been able to move forward on this. So I'm getting a little concerned, so we're investigating some other options.
I appreciate that, and I want to correct, I said budget analyst, that's from my old job, business administrator. So
Thank you.
that is the business administrator, not the budget analyst. Sorry about that. Yes.
So I just want to also add that this has been something that was brought to the attention of the town probably about 2.5 months ago. So it was something that we thought would be moved along a lot quicker, that it wouldn't hold us up, because we were supposed to start building in June outside, but because of this holdup, we're unable to move forward with any building outside, which could cause us to be penalized.
And to be
Financially.
clear,
Yes.
yeah, and to be clear on the interactions with the Department of Interior, they won't talk to the school district. They said, this is not a school district issue. This is a town issue. If the land's used for any other purpose, that the town is responsible for the grant. They're the only ones on the grant. They are responsible for the grant and any repercussions on it. Now, that said, the land is ours. It's not the town's land. So we can move forward. They're just holding up our building permit right now. But building permits, their responsibility on a building permit for a school district is for life and safety issues only. So they really shouldn't be holding up our permit, so.
And I have been told that this is not the first time they've had to do this, right? And so the tennis courts, for instance, they've already done this process one time before, so it's not a new process. It's a matter of just finding another piece of land and allocating that land and saying this is going to be used for recreational use. Like the dog park could have been one of those if they would have moved on saying that when they started the planning process. So the dog park could have been one of the uses for this piece.
Or like a small portion of the 65 acres that Roy Malou left them.
We only need like 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah.
They only need 3/4 of an acre, so it's holding us up for that, for 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah, so it sounds like this might be something that we need to discuss with selectmen, like board to board, because I don't understand if we own the land, we did the research on the deeds, there was nothing on there, it's their grant, and they're holding up our permits while they figure out how to reallocate and their 3/4 of an acre of recreational use land. I think that we should, I went actually last Monday, not this last Monday, but a week and a half ago Monday, almost 2 weeks ago Monday, on my own, and just had brought this up and offered my services if the town needed me to make some phone calls or go to Concord, whatever it takes, because we've already delayed it once. It's delayed until September, so we have until before September, then after September, we can't guarantee the costs that we have laid out, and so it's gonna break our budget, basically, which the majority of this budget comes from the state of New Hampshire, right? Like the town, we have money invested in this, but also, you know, 12.5 million from the state that's being held up for, you know, designating a 3/4 piece of acre. To me, the layperson, the way that I see it is they're delaying a designation of 3/4 of an acre for recreational use that's not currently labeled for recreational use, as I understand it. Yes?
Question and a comment. On the piece of land, I forgot my comment anyways. They've known about this for months, and I guess it's confusing to me too, because it's our piece of property. So it's our property. So if the town has this issue, I guess the town has this issue, then the town needs to figure their issue out. But it's our piece of property, deeded to us, that piece. So I'm confused on that. Now, do you know if they legally can hold our permits up, or?
Well, we'll need to.
We'll have to consult on that. And in our contract with Harvey, do we have penalties if we delay construction?
Well, what happens is that the bids that have already been done.
Could change.
Could change, and so the cost will go up. Like in any construction job, if it goes beyond the planned time, then the overhead costs will go up, because they'll have to have people on site beyond the end of the project if it's delayed beyond that point.
So a project that passed in this town, what, 86% threshold, like we had
82, I think.
82%. A project that the state is more than 80% involved in, this is the project the state wants done too, and the people in our community were gracious enough to overwhelmingly pass it. And the town manager's office is holding this up basically because we've pissed them off, and now it's just kind of a game, my words, my opinion. It's like enough's enough. Like, now you're screwing this up, which could be significantly, like a huge impact on this whole thing. It could cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars, us as in the taxpayers. It could screw up stuff that where we can't do things we should be able to do. As it is, the state is put in their budget to give us additional money to cover the difference from when this was put out to bid. You know, this is ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous.
Yes, Mr. Spalding.
Question for Donna or Ed. At what date were we informed that this wasn't going to happen?
So, it was back in March.
Is that a select board meeting? Yeah, some,
Ed Carr is the
Yeah.
only one in town that knew about it.
Right, we went to, through the planning process,
I wasn't thinking that day,
yeah,
not the date that we found out that we had a problem. The date that we found out that we didn't have follow through on the town side.
I'm just this week. I mean, about a week ago, Hunter called me just to say that no update, right, his proposal to the state environmental services was denied, and he had put forth multiple changes to try to get it approved, and every attempt was denied by the Environmental Services Department. It has nothing to do with our property, it has to do with another property he was trying to use as the exchange. But, you know, it seems like there's no other backup option.
So we got a phone call, we did not get any documentation as to the date.
He will not put anything in writing on this project.
Donna, can we, as a school board, make a request for the denial date?
I received an email a little while back that said, no updates. It said CTE, no updates. I was told that he knew this, that land and that property and stuff was denied in May.
Let's see, where are we now? May 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, I can go all the way.
Like 45 days.
Yep, okay, I got it.
We need a half an acre for a bench to bird watch.
Yeah, and just to correct on the thing, the final number when we had all the parking area in this is almost an acre. So I just want to correct that. It started out, the building itself takes a half acre, but it kind of grew a little bit because of just the peripheral of the building. So
For $169, they have a hummingbird watching bench at the Valleys. I saw it. I sent you a picture of it earlier. So we could contribute that if he wants to, you know.
Yeah, and I think the issue is where the town is trying to make the land where they're gonna put the new well on the north side of town. They were trying to turn that into a field with parking, and I think it's,
The parking.
the parking is the issue with the environmental science.
More than that, but.
Setback from public water.
Right.
They also want us to pay a large amount of money to do as well. More than what an acre would be worth.
Yeah. So, moving forward,
Well, it might be an unfair question, but it'd be the first one I've ever asked. Do you feel we're getting cooperation from the town side on the,
I did early on. I'm not so sure now.
Ed's a nice one.
Ask a question or say something. It's on, that recreation area is on school property at this point. Do you have a piece of school property that you can just say, this is now the new recreation grant
They
area?
won't talk to us.
Well,
No, your school property.
Right, but the state won't talk to us. It's because it's grants through the town, they'll only talk to the town. Because we
Okay.
thought about that and we're like, well, we could,
Okay, so the second thing is there anybody at the Board of Education that could step in and ruffle some feathers?
There's a possibility. I am in conversation with others, so.
It's hurting the children
Yes,
when it comes right down to it.
absolutely, I agree.
It's creating a lot of animosity, it's bothering staff. You're spending a lot of time on something that should have been taken care of. And then the last, but not the least, Get your attorney on it.
So the school district only owns 2 pieces of property, both at the height, 3 pieces if you include the elementary school, but there's 2 pieces at the high school, and neither, the second piece won't work for this conversion. The town owns, I've looked it up on the website, the town owns 75 pieces of property in town. And not all of them would qualify, of course, but there's a lot of properties in town.
What would be nice is, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What would be nice is if they would have a bunch of different options and bring those and say, okay, here's the different options. Because when Ed and I first started investigating this, we spoke to the same place that the town is speaking to, and they told us, they said to us, you find a piece of property, you let us know what it's going to be used for, and then we'll say, okay, and then you can start building. And then you just work on doing that. You could just take a bench and put it somewhere with a swampland and label it for bird watching. That's going to be okay. And then they said, there's Manchester, I think it was Manchester right now, has the same thing going on, but theirs has been going on for a few years, 3 years. But they have already built though.
Yep.
They've already been allowed to build. So we didn't understand what the holdup was, and then all of a sudden, Hunter called somebody down there, and he's being told something different. And then when I called down there, they said, we can't speak to the school any longer because the grant is from the town, and so we can only speak to the town now.
Mr. Borgman.
What's happening with this piece of property right now? What's on it?
The property that we need to build on, or the property
The path that you gotta have moved.
that's...
So what's on that property right now?
Right now, that's where there's 3 basketball courts, there's a soccer field, a field hockey field, the track.
But none of that needs to be moved.
That's
That's
all?
where the ice rink was.
Okay, with the ice rink, and that hasn't been used in
The
years.
ice rink is gone.
Yeah.
Right, that's been gone for years. So, I mean, that should be an easy thing to get rid of and put someplace else, you know? You can put another hockey rink right back in
And
the common, you know?
actually, the federal government, they said you don't have to replace the hockey rink. It was obsolete at the time it was removed. It was actually a danger. It was falling apart. The boards had rotted and all. And the town was already at the time doing other things for the hockey rink.
There should be
in
no
town.
reason for the town not to give a permit to be start building there.
Correct.
You know, really, that's just being rude. That, you know, my opinion.
Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Just to clarify one of the questions that was asked earlier, has the school proposed to the town giving up a piece of 3/4 of an acre or whatever of school property that they would be able, that would qualify for the recreation use?
Kind of repeat the question back. Just a little bit.
All right.
TV audience.
So that way, the question was, has the school proposed to the town to use any of the acreage that we currently have as part of this turning around the land? The land that we have, all the land, so one of the things that the state has said is it cannot already be slated as recreational use. All of the land that we have is already slated recreational use, so we don't have any land for that. So we wouldn't be able to. We did offer to assist if needed.
Yes, ma'am.
I wonder if there was some way, you say a lot of the property is still being used for basketball courts and whatnot. Why can't you take that little, measure up however much that you need for the building, it can't be too much, and take the front lawn of the school and put a bench on it. That's how much the ice rink took?
Well, by the time we build the parking around, so it's gonna encroach a little bit past the ice rink. So the ice rink's not just, that was the main recreation that was on that property. Or that we're gonna be taking over.
And the new property has to be exclusively recreation. So, you know, we can't take part of our parking lot and make it, call it recreational because it's not, it's a parking lot, you know, that sort of thing. The front lawn is our buffer from the street. We can't take that, yeah.
Racing's recreational, you're racing.
Is it a fair statement that it could be anywhere in town?
Yep, can be anywhere in town, doesn't have to be abutting the school or anything, could be anywhere.
Could it be steep? Could be steep.
But it has to have a recreational purpose.
Mountain climbing is,
Perfect.
what I'm trying to get to is,
Yeah.
what are our possibilities?
That is
It could have, it has to have at least 3/4 of an acre, but would prefer 1.
Yeah.
It has to be recreational, but recreational is a huge word. And it could be any location within the town of Newport. Anyone listening got an acre that they,
Well, that's what I was wondering too, yeah.
that they would offer up if we, and the only thing that has to happen on it is probably a picnic table or something of that nature that,
And it would, I think it may have to be offered to the town, not to the school.
Well, we own a big part of the land, so it doesn't matter who owns it. But yeah, and he described it, when I talked to him, he described it as a pocket park. So you got an acre of land, you put a picnic table and a couple horseshoe pits, and that's a pocket park, you know? People can go and enjoy it. It's recreation.
Somebody gets the land, I'll do the bench and the horseshoe pits.
Yes, Mr. Moore.
At the last selectmen meeting, they were talking that they were going to think about if the well money went through from the town, they were thinking about putting it down there. That went through.
It's a different well.
No, but we can't, the way that the town manager is trying, he proposed that land,
Yeah.
He changed it though, and they still said no.
and then I think so basically they can't have parking on it, what we were talking about kind of at the beginning, because of the parking lot that is proposed there, that they rejected it
Town
twice.
manager presented that to Tim and I when we met a couple of months ago. I have this great proposal, we just need to get an exemption, shouldn't be a problem. We want to put parking around it. Here we are. So.
Because that well has to have a 400-foot radius of nothing, so obviously, because it will be the water that we drink in town. So they don't want any risk of oil or any of those kind of things. So he redesigned it, but from what I understand, the state said no, nothing at all. We want nothing. It needs to just be an area that is protected, which I understand when everyone drinks the water, it's probably important not to have any chance of anything going into it, so.
So, do we have any proposals for action on this, or do we want to, yes?
he's gonna ruin my bad reputation.
Thank you, Tim.
Competing.
Tim, hold it up again for the TV.
He just started that first. I'll make you one.
Do you need any kind of motion from the board in terms of checking into any legal action regarding holding up our permits?
I don't think so. I think we have authority to consult with our attorney, so. I think we're good.
Well, wait a minute, is our attorney the same one that's the town attorney?
We'd have to probably do.
I checked with our attorney, and he said that, for what I was asking him for, he can do it. He is not the town's attorney, it's somebody else within his firm.
Oh, okay.
So there's potential conflict, but for the stage we're at, we're okay. And if it got to the point that he needed to represent us in a conflict with the town, then he would have to send us somewhere else.
I have a,
I think we should go somewhere else first.
Yeah.
Why are we gonna cost ourselves that delay when we can maybe get around without it?
Out of town preferably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna wait until,
I ran into the same thing in a legal case myself. Where my attorney also represented another client that was related to the one that I was going against. And even my attorney said, get somebody else because you could get bogged down when you're deep into this thing and the mud's up around your neck and you can't get out of it.
We're at the point right now that just, again, for the purpose that I've asked, the questions I've asked him, he's perfectly fine with it. It's when we get into an adversarial conflict with
That will
them,
happen.
and- Yeah.
With Hunter, it will happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I can do this, but I'd like to make a motion that we find another attorney.
to second that motion, I was gonna bring up a non-public, but sure. I don't think we should have attorneys in the same law office.
I'm not trying to be hard-nosed or anything, but I'm trying to protect us down the road.
Very good point. Excellent point.
If the issues have conflict, both sides have to step away from that law firm.
Well, I don't care what the town does if we've already stepped away from it.
Right. We can step away and they can stay,
Yeah.
but we have a favored law firm now. My point being, if we pull away with no controversy, I don't know that that benefits us. But that all being said, I'm in hopes that somebody out there has an acre that they don't want to pay taxes on.
Gonna have to bring it up on the radio.
And that being said, even if it had to go through subdivision to get that acre, and the town then, if we got that far and they did not accept it, then what was that sign you put up?
Any other discussion on,
Were you able to see the sign from your side, Steve?
Well, we have a motion with a second.
no, I know,
Oh,
there was
okay.
a second, so I'm looking for, if you have any.
Donna has something to say. I'm still chewing.
Anytime there becomes a conflict or anything, that if we pulled up or whatever, we would have to sign a waiver saying that we're okay with them continuing with their attorney, that, and I would suggest to the board, I would come to the board and suggest that we did not sign that waiver, that they needed to find another
Absolutely.
attorney themselves. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, because the lawyers talk, like, if you're in the same crowd, now if they have 100 lawyers, okay, but it's a conflict, and under perfect circumstances, we shouldn't have any issues with the town, which is our government that represent us in the same town. We shouldn't have to have a lawyer to go against them, so we can waste our tax money from our left pocket to fight our right pocket. Like, the whole thing is ludicrous, but I think it's not in our best interest to have the same law firm. I mean, like I said, if they have 100 lawyers, or it's like a huge place, maybe, but, or if there's like a real if it's hard to find lawyers that do this stuff, you know, like, oh, there's only 3 firms in the state and everyone else is, 10 times as much money, but if we can get away from having the same lawyer, I think we should get away from having the same law firm.
Ed, do we have any more questions for the lawyer right now?
I just contacted him, and he's willing to meet with me. He wanted to see the documents that I've accumulated and go over it and give us some advice on how to proceed. It's a rather simple thing. It can get complicated. He's done these conversions before, so that's what's attractive to me. We've got a relationship with him. He's done these before, and if we can keep it friendly, then he can, through his partner, can bring in the town side to get this done in a cooperative way. If it gets to the point that they don't want to cooperate, then this attorney would probably have to step back unless the town released him. So it works both ways. They need to release us, we need, you know, or we need to release them.
It can work out in a friendly manner.
That's my, I'm the guy that wants to bring it all together and let's get it done. We only have 2 months, and if it's not done in a cooperative way, it's gonna go downhill really quick. So that's why I'm trying to keep it on the up and up right now.
I would really like to see that meeting happen because I don't want to make things worse. I understand where you're coming from, but
I would say look for, not necessarily like, yeah, tomorrow we're gonna fire, no, let's start the process of looking elsewhere. But yeah, absolutely, because we don't wanna slow down our end of things to slow anything down either.
right.
I'll reword the motion if I need to.
We've already went down that avenue, and we already have a name of someone. If we need to, we discuss that before. What do you need to?
I would like to see us not do this at this time.
I'll withdraw my second at this
Well,
time.
no, we'll just take a vote and then, can you withdraw?
Yep. And then he can withdraw his motion.
And I'll withdraw also.
We have a meeting next week, we'll have more information and
Yeah.
I appreciate the feedback from the citizens on that, that's greatly appreciated. Okay, so let's move on next to the bus barn. So we received a letter from the town, and I'm not sure if everybody has had a chance to read it, but I will read it so that it's entered into the record for the school board. It's from the town of Newport letterhead dated June 8th, 2023. It's addressed to me as chairman of the school board, and it's regarding the Department of Public Works garage. Dear Mr. Morris, as you know, the Newport School Board voted in November to withhold its payment of $5,800 for use of space at the town's DPW garage for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. The district also did not respond to the town's request to increase the rent for space to $10,000 for the 2024 fiscal year. Despite several subsequent requests by the town, we received no further communication from the school district regarding its intent. The selectmen therefore decided early this year to repurpose this space, which the town needs for its own vehicles. Because the school district has not agreed to rental terms beyond the current fiscal year, the selectmen expect the district to vacate the garage as of June 30th. As I am sure you understand, the recent vote by the town meeting to lease the space to the school district for 99 years for one-time payment of $1 is ineffective. The town does not have the authority to lease its property for essentially no consideration when it needs the property for its own use. The article approved by the town meeting amounts to a gift of a town asset which the town cannot authorize. Although the school district is expected to vacate the property by June 30th, the town remains ready and willing to assist the school district with its bus storage needs and would be happy to participate in a joint working committee to study the matter further. Any arrangement would, of course, require a written lease to be negotiated by the town and the school district. Alternatively, we would be willing to discuss an arrangement to allow the school district adequate space to store buses in the DPW yard with any necessary improvements to be at the district's expense and subject to approval by the selectmen. Given that the town has no legal obligation to make space available to the school district, we think this offer is extremely reasonable and would be happy to discuss it with you. Please let us know how you would like to proceed. Sincerely, Barry J. Connell, Chairman, Newport Select Board, and it's signed by Mr. Connell. So we received that on June 8th.
After we were planning on meeting
Yes,
at a joint meeting, which the town manager informed us after the selectmen accepted that they would not have a quorum available to meet with us.
so we did have a meeting scheduled on the books, a joint meeting between both boards, and
For June 8th, right?
Yeah,
June 8th.
for to discuss, and then they withdrew because of lack of a quorum.
But then they wanted us to form a committee with like 2 of us and 2 of them and do it behind closed doors, so that way, you know, save face, I guess, or whatever.
It's out of the public.
And we're like, no, we're gonna do it publicly, because that's where it should be done. And then we got this letter, basically, that the vote of the people of this town, the government of this town, it doesn't matter. Apparently, we're run by a
We
dictator.
all feel about that.
So you must have communicated to them to stop meeting,
I'm sorry? At their meeting,
right?
yeah,
So there was communication.
yes.
Okay. What else in this letter is factually incorrect? I would love to hear the specifics about each thing in this letter that's not accurate.
Well, we, so was it the
We
second
did-
sentence? We did respond to the request to increase, asking for further information.
Because it wasn't $10,000, it was 10,000 XXX. So we wanted an exact amount.
I'd like to clarify, I just want to make sure that we document somewhere exactly what is not factually correct.
So there was communication on that. We did not inform the select board that we were ever going to withhold our rent payment because we decided that it was better for the town and everybody involved to go ahead and pay. We usually make our payment June 30th.
Yep.
They requested it in January of this year. We said, no, we'll pay it in June, when we have for the last, how far did you go back? 17 years?
Yeah.
I mean, they see the Article 21 that was voted on as being unlawful. I can't really speak to that as being true or untrue.
They did not,
Well, it says ineffective,
Right. I have an opinion on that, but,
very vague.
right.
let me just see if there's anything else that I
I
catch
can
up.
speak on that one, too.
Mr. Long, we're gonna finish answering his and then I'll call on you. Go ahead.
So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that we had that meeting, and the board had voted to use the money to help
Capital
with,
improvements.
yes, capital improvements to the building. I don't know if you've seen the facility. And so that's what we voted on. After that, the town manager and I were going back and forth on the rent. It was like 10,000 something, 10,000 XXX, 10,000. He never gave an amount. And I said, I need to know an amount. I can't just go to the board or to the people and say, well, here's a lease, but we don't know what you're gonna pay.
He
And
gave
we're
an
going
amount, but they contradicted. There was 3
Yes.
different amounts. So he did give an amount, but it was, I think, 2 or 3 different.
Yes, so at the meeting, so this went on for a while. At the meeting, the town of selectmen decided that the reason that they were not going to allow us to have the spot or to evict us had nothing to do with the lease that we were not signing. It was, they would say it was the fact that we said we were gonna withhold the rent, right? So that right there in their whole first paragraph is incorrect, because now they're saying in this paragraph that it's because we said we weren't going to pay the $10,000. We weren't gonna sign the lease. That's not factual. I actually have had conversations and emails with Hunter, because I only do stuff via email now with him because of these reasons, right? And so it's not because of us not paying the $10,000 or agreeing to a future amount, right? Because I was in negotiations with him and say, well, how much do you want us to pay? So this whole statement up front is incorrect. Because it says, because the district has not agreed to rental terms beyond the current fiscal year, they expect us to vacate. We've never had the option. Jenna and I went to a meeting and we pleaded with them not to evict us and to allow us to sit down and have the conversation, and they said, no, you're being evicted. So there was no part of that. And then at one time, to continue on, at one time, the space was going to be used for, they said they have a bunch of sheds around town, and they needed to store all of their equipment, their lawnmowers and those types of things, in there. And then all of a sudden it changed to they were gonna store their ambulances in there. So that part has changed over the time, so it's not just as far as what they plan on using it for.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
And to be clear, we have documentation going back to at least November of 2021 with our former superintendent where they were trying to take away a bay. So that they suddenly needed a bay is factually incorrect.
Should the school board respond in a letter like this to set the record straight?
Well, so we have gone to the selectmen meetings and are on the record setting and putting our side of the events on the record for their meetings, and we've done it at our meetings as well. We've kind of rehashed it probably 6 times over the last 5 months where we have gone back and forth between them either coming to our meeting and having some comments or us going to theirs.
I mean, we could certainly put a timeline out there.
Yes, we
but at
could put a
this point,
timeline together.
I think that would help the public that's not at the
Yeah.
meeting.
I think that's
From my perspective as a citizen of this town, my own personal opinion, I'm upset about this letter because we voted. It passed 700 and something to 100, so those of us that participate in the elections and the governance of this town spoke. Mr. Spalding put together the article that went forward, and so they didn't speak out against the article at the deliberative session when it was brought forward. Not one selectman stood up and said, hey, I have an issue with this. This doesn't sound legal. This sounds ineffective. None of that was said. They sat there quietly while all the citizens took turns debating because there were some amendments proposed to it. So there was a lot of discussion about this. And so and this is what I had told them when I went to that meeting, is I don't want to meet in a committee behind closed doors because the citizens have spoken. So if we're not going to do what the citizens have said, yes, we agree with this and this makes sense, then we owe it to the citizens to either say we're not going to do what you voted and think that we're going to do, and then the citizens can hold us all to account, or we take it back to a vote and we request a special session vote. I'm sure that's probably possible. And then you go and you make your case again and you have another vote. But to do it behind closed doors, to admit that we have done anything wrong, Jenna went to their meeting when she was still chairman of the school board and said, I apologize, we should have communicated better, let's fix this. And the consensus of the board was too little too late, we got nothing for you. Yeah. And that's actually, Mr. Kessler used that word to describe our concerns. He described it as bitching. He didn't say we had concerns about the situation or the conditions or any of the accommodations or anything else like that. And he was the chairman of the select board at the time. So their chairman viewed our concerns that were brought to us from our director for transportation as bitching, not as valid concerns as a town employee, because as school employees, you're an employee of the town. The taxes pay us all. So I do agree, though. It might be easier just to put a timeline out there so that they can look and say, nope, you're wrong here. You made a mistake because this is an email that maybe you didn't see, Mr. Morris, or whatever, you know what I mean? So then we can get to it. So I kind of like that idea. I can probably work on something like that.
The same day that when we were at the select board meeting, the new chairman had looked right at me and said, Mrs. Magoon, we accept your invitation to the joint meeting. And so a week before is when I received the email from the town manager saying they did not have a quorum, that they could not meet. I immediately spoke with Steve and I said, is everybody available to meet at anytime. And they said, absolutely. So I wrote back and I said, because they wanted to meet behind closed doors, and I said that we weren't going to do that. We wanted to meet in public, and that they can name the time and they can name the place, and my board would all be there. So we'd meet at any time that they wanted. And he said, well, I'm not sure if we can, and Hunter responded back to me that he wasn't sure if that was something that he could do. And I said, can you please ask your select board? Because we would really like to sit down and meet about this. And he said, I will, it'll take me a week. I don't know why it took a week, because it took me 3 minutes to find out from my board what we wanted to do. So then it was this past Friday, Pat made it the end of the week. And that evening at 5 o'clock is when the email was sent to, this letter was sent to Mr. Morris. So I've never got a response saying, no, sorry, we're not going to meet with you. It was this letter that came via email and then snail mail on Monday.
To be fair, it was 4:53 p.m. on last Friday. So it wasn't quite 5 o'clock, but it was the end of the day.
And I really didn't need a quorum. I mean, a quorum would have been nice, but the whole point of that meeting was to get things moving and people talking, so.
To move
Because it was our
past
board
it.
meeting.
Because it was our board meeting.
Mr. Lund.
I'd like to add a couple of things that I think are legalities that are in this, illegalities or whatever in this letter. One is that a dollar figure is a legal amount. That's why you would put a dollar in, is because that says this is a monetary figure. It could be $10,000. It could be, but the dollar is the minimum, and there are a lot of deals that are made where that dollar figure is in there just so that the dollar amount is configured into the thing. The other is that we are the legislative body. We are the legislature of this town, and when we make any kind of a vote and make a decision, it is the selectmen's job to follow our lead, not to create their own sense of what they believe is right or wrong. And therefore, whether they think this is the sense of the meeting or the reality of the meeting, it is still the lead of the legislature of this community that has said, this is what we want to do. And that, I think, is also very inappropriately misrepresented in that letter.
Thank you, Mr. Lund. Mr. Spaulding.
Okay, this is going to be a little bit lengthy, but it's going to come to a good conclusion. How did it all start? By our bus guy saying we have these problems. I commented that we should withhold the rent and do leasehold improvements. Let's explain that for a minute. You own a building, you got a tenant. The tenant wants an air conditioning unit built in, and he's willing to pay for it. When the tenant leaves, it's not his, it's yours. Only a fool would say no. So, a leasehold improvement, and Mr. Kessler took that as a denial. That was the beginning. The other problems that existed in the highway garage, access to sanitary facilities, place to sit down and wait while you had to go do something or do your paperwork. There were a number of them that should have been addressed by the landlord if in fact the town is the landlord. How can the town be the landlord when in fact they don't own the land? Everyone in this room, in this town, owns this land. They are but the keepers of it. So it deteriorated from there with an increase in the amount of rent from $5,800 a year, which they had not received yet, to $10,000 XXX. Mr. Kessler said he did that on a number of years, figuring in a percentage increase. Mr. Kessler was there on the select board through all of those years that we did not get an increase. Cost of living, or whatever you want to call it. We didn't get it. So he's offended now, and 10,000 XXX is what they're looking for. So at that point, we had to make a decision. But before we really got into the decision, we were given an eviction notice based on our misbehavior of saying we weren't not going to pay the rent. We did not say that. A leasehold improvement is a rent payment because what you're doing belongs to the lessee, leaser. So when we got that notice, we had to think about how do we keep the buses running? And we are in the current year budget, all right? You, as a public, give us this much money between the bookends. Hopefully, we have enough to do everything we've got to do. And if we don't have enough, then we have to cut somewhere. If we add a new expenditure, that's got to come out somewhere else. Where does it come out? Our biggest problem in education is getting us from the 211 position up and solving behavior. Not dealing with a bus garage, which is important, and we're going to deal with it. So, at that point, a decision has to be made on what our actions would be, and I thought a warrant article would be very appropriate. So it was put together, and most of us in this room probably were there. The vote was 701 to 145. That is significant. We did it. I did it. My part of it. On the basis of the piece of paper that I've handed out tonight, which is New Hampshire RSA 41:11, small a, town property. Now, the 40 series statutes are all municipal statutes. You want to find out A, B, or C about town affairs, you go to the 40s. That's what it's for. So I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to comment. The selectmen shall have authority to manage all real property owned by the town and to regulate its use, comma. I'm going to read it again. The selectmen shall have authority to manage all real property owned by the town and to regulate its use, comma. Unless such management and regulation is delegated to other public officers by vote of the town. I stop. What did that say? Unless such management, the authority they've been given in the first sentence, such management and regulation is delegated to other public officers by vote of the town. That's what we did. The rest of it governed by other statutes are trees and other things. They are not germane to our issue. Reading Roman 2, the authority under paragraph 1 shall include the power to rent or lease such property during periods not needed for public use, provided, however, that any rental or lease agreement for a period of more than 1 year shall not be valid unless ratified by vote of the town. What did we do? They're having a hard time swallowing that pill. I can remember being a little child and having to take a pill, and I just couldn't seem to swallow it. But people, there isn't a lawyer in this room, but we can read. We did it the right way. And for them to say that they will disregard our vote is to say we don't have a government anymore. We can't self-govern. As it is now, there are many things that they tell us in education that we've got to do, that we have to do, that we can't control. But this we can, and did. So that all being said, that triggered the letter that has been read to you tonight, I got a call this morning. It was not a confidential call. I was not asked to keep it quiet. And I hope it doesn't offend the person who called. Maybe he would have said, Bert, keep it under wraps for a while, but he did not. This is going to come up as an issue Monday's selectmen meeting. The person apologized for signing the letter and the issue that it raised. So I believe this diffuses the issue Monday, providing that the other 4 selectmen have come to a similar conclusion. But it is very important that the chair has rescinded his signature from this letter, and
Can we get that right?
that he did not write.
Is that right?
That he did not write. So, that all being said, I think this issue comes to an end Monday night. I think it has serious repercussions in other ways. I might refer to the sign that this fellow has.
If we all agree with T-shirts.
So,
Not a bad idea.
so I guess I would say to all of you that are here, to get everybody that you can to come to Monday night's selectmen's meeting. The room has to be so overfilled that it goes out through the hall and fills the outer place. Because much more is here than just the bus barn. It is our right to self-govern. If they could get away with this, we have no more. There were articles put on there for this, that, and the other that were petitioned articles that have been done, and it's been that way since the 1800s. So it is that right that we lose if we surrender here. But we have help here. And that one person changing his point of view on the content of the letter is one person. So if the vote is 4-1, all that does is have one less person that we have to lynch. I don't mean that in a physical term, but when they go to McDonald's, I hope their hamburger isn't in there.
That happens every day.
We have to, as a community, speak to this. It is wonderful that it's being, an attempt to undo it is happening. But we gotta make sure that we, all of us, and all of the people you can bring to Monday's meeting, state clearly that our vote is important, and then we go forward with figuring out the things that we could do to do it amenably in the transfer. Going all the way back to when that building was built, the town manager said how nice it was that the town and school got together to do this. We didn't do the bond, the town did. But without us there, could they have gotten as much building? If the school isn't here, oh, well, you don't need all of these bays. So us being there was verbiage to support what they wanted. What did they want? They wanted his statement, the community. It was us, not one, it was us. We have Now, this is my opinion, and maybe in this forum, it's not the right thing to do, but I want to expand on the sign. I have found that I can't trust Mr. Eastberg in his actions. I think it's wrong. I think he's wrong. But here we have a gift of one person who is willing to say he wants his signature off that document. And then if Mr. Kessler decides he wants to put his signature on it, go ahead.
He's not chairman.
Yes, but he could still put his signature
Oh, I
on it,
understand.
right? And so that's my long diatribe, and I hope that we fill the place and we're all on the same page. And if that happens, we've broken the ice in the ice jam. Like an ice jam, you break the ice and then it's over. That's it.
I have a couple things. If it's okay with the board, Donna, can we just post that there will potentially be a quorum of the board?
Already done.
Okay. Second thing is, in response to the lynching comment, I do think, however we go, if we all are there, quorum of us, or just more than one of us will be there, that we go and maintain our professionalism and respectfulness throughout this, because while I wholeheartedly disagree with the letter and the decision of the town, just as this is not an easy position to be in, it's not an easy position for them either. And the last thing I want to do is go and be disrespectful to them, even though that has not always been returned in our favor. So I won't be holding the sign, but I will go, and I hope that what you say is correct. On Monday's meeting, I will be there.
And I would like to say one additional thing, not to contradict you. If someone needs a spanking, I'm there ready to do it. So
You know, Bert, I usually only speak for
if this
myself.
tree is going to fall in the right direction, I have no problem recognizing that that is a success. If the tree is going to go in the wrong direction, I have no problem telling them where they're going to go. This has got to end. It is wrong. I can't allow it to happen, no matter what the consequences are, because the consequences to me are greater than me telling somebody that he's full of it.
Parallel me, please.
That's my honor.
So, my name's Mallory Tatro. So, I agree, Jen, and appreciate that, but I think professionalism needs to be maintained here. I don't like this targeted sort of approach, an individualized approach. I think we need to go back to the verbiage around the article, because as we can agree, Mr. Lund can agree, Mr. Spalding can agree, this should have been effective. So, them using the word even ineffective, not illegal, it's not right? So we need to sort of investigate this. This isn't a gift, hence the dollar value put on it. This isn't a gift. So as much as it pains me to say, have we looked into this with an attorney? Has an attorney looked at the validity of the article yet from our side? I shouldn't say the school board side?
Do you want to answer that, Bert?
Because I agree with its validity, let me also make that clear. So that's why I'm saying, I don't like this personalized approach to this. So if Monday this isn't a turn of events and the board sort of suddenly rescinds this letter, what's the direction of following through that really we want the validity of our vote?
To disavow the vote of the people is a bigger issue than anything else that's here. That's the first thing that's got to be solved. And that's not done by us, that's done by the board themselves. So if the vote is 4-1, they're going to continue. At that point, they are ignoring our rights, the law, but they won't ignore me. I have,
I'm just trying to see if there was, if we actually have our legal, if this was written correctly so that we have a leg to stand on to uphold our vote with them, to sort of answer back with that. If they don't vote to, to turn this over.
Need view officer
So
using
what's the next step? if they
tax
don't?
money for
The article was put in front of an attorney before it was presented.
I gave it to them. And so they stated on the radio that their attorneys, I don't believe they have one. Because an attorney, first of all, will cite the foundation for his statements. RSA 4111 small a. He will not say, you're wrong. If he's representing them, his statement would be, it would contain the law. And what the flaw is in the law that says we can't do what we did.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. How do we question that?
I think the
guess?
short answer to your question is yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But where do we go? What are the next steps, I guess, if Monday night isn't a grand turn of events?
Well, the next step is their vote, and the next step after that goes either left or right, depending on how they vote.
So we can be hopeful for Monday, I guess, at this point.
I'm hopeful for the simple matter that we've said before, that's been, and you even repeated it, was we spoke, the town spoke, there was debate at the deliberative session. It went back and forth because of the concern for the $1. So there were citizens that, tried to pass amendments. And so there was great discussion had. And just like Mr. Lund said, we as voting citizens individually, we're the legislative body, and we've said, hey, town, you need to figure out something else to do with whatever you're doing, because this is ridiculous. And so the will of the people is this is ridiculous. And I'm pretty sure I said that at their board meeting as my own personal opinion, and I definitely know that I've said it outside in public, that to not do the will of the people, it's tyranny, and they no longer represent us as a government, and then something else needs to happen. They either need to have a special election, get them all recalled, and I'm not saying that as the chairman of the school board, I'm saying this as Steve Morris, American citizen, New Hampshire citizen, Newport citizen. You can't just say we're ignoring the vote. They've done it already with a couple of other things, and it has to stop here or they'll keep doing it. This isn't the first time where they just ignored citizens, our, what do we call it whenever we have the...
Deliberative?
Well, the deliberative, but the actual...
Grievances.
Our grievances, but we passed warrant article. Like our article, because other citizens have put together articles and they just ignore them because they don't even really address it. At least I miss it. And I don't think that that's right. I think that it should be explained and have a discussion. And in this case, we should have a discussion board to board. I get it. Like if there's something about those buildings that we don't know or whatever, then let's have a discussion about it. And I would like to think that we're all reasonableists here. We're not going out and trying to do anything crazy. We just wanted a better environment for our employees because that's what they deserve and that's what they're required. We're required to provide it. And frankly, so is the town. And I'm pretty sure I think the town came in right after they decided to ignore and started getting quotes to improve the bays that we want to improve. So because even for the town, they're like, well, these are unacceptable. So we need to improve them. So, I mean, what more of a slap in the face than to say like, yeah, you're right, but no, we're going to try to charge you 6 months earlier. And oh, by the way, there's other things too. So that us saying we want a better work environment triggered 3 or 4 different, these bills are due and sign right now that you're going to pay these immediately, like dictating to us, like all of a sudden changing things. And that's just not how things operate. Like we go on precedent, right? Like if it's always due in June, if you're going to change it, you don't just say, what's due now because I don't like what you said at your meeting. Well, tough luck, buddy. Like, that's the precedent. So I have some issues, aside from being chairman of the board here. My own personal is, you gotta acknowledge that the town spoke, and the town wants this fixed. It doesn't want them to store their lawnmowers. It doesn't want them to store ambulances, because they had a plan for ambulances, as far as I know. And that now all of a sudden, that's what they want to put out there, which is out from the center. And I'm saying this again as a citizen. I don't want the ambulances that far away from the center of town. Like, that's a pretty good drive. And the second that someone, unfortunately, does not get saved or rescued because they had to take a 15-minute detour out to the DPW garage to pick up the ambulance, that family should own the town of Newport. And anybody responsible for moving those ambulances so far out of the center of town. That's my own personal opinion. But that's, to me, that's how far this goes on the discussions that they've had, that it doesn't really matter once the legislative body has spoken. Otherwise, it's tyranny, and that's what you were getting at, is that we don't have a rule of law anymore to just be like, it's ineffective. Who are you? Like you said, cite a law, cite what's ineffective, and then we can have a discussion about that and say, all right, well, okay. But this is just unacceptable from my own personal opinion, Mr. Spalding. And then
some people are thinking that because the fire department article the year before was not lawful, that in fact can be extrapolated to here. It cannot. What happened was, the employees, right over there, they got together and said, we want this. And they put in their article. That bypasses all of the management, which is designed into our government, that we act as the managers. So they got in and they got their yes vote. No, they didn't. Now I use them as an example, without their permission.
Remember, you could need them.
So it isn't the same, period. There are, when you go on the state laws, there are many of them. If you start reading today, by the time your funeral comes, you might find them all. It's a lot of them.
Mr. Ring, before I got a hand up in the back.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that most of us, or all of us who voted for the amendment, would agree that even if there is some letter of the law problem that they can nitpick about it, that the people have said what they want, and it was very clear, and that really what we want is for some collaboration and to move forward and not to be stuck at this point. So that's my comment. My question is, if maybe I missed the answer to Mallory's question, I'm hoping somebody can clarify whether the school board has had an attorney look at the amendment and say, yes, this looks good, or, ooh, maybe they could question this part. Have we had somebody look at it?
Because before Bert shared that he's heard that Mr. Connell may be sort of rescinding his, signature, right here tonight we'd be discussing how we would combat this, right? So have you, like she's saying, have you had an attorney look at the legality of it?
We know they're looking for loopholes and nitpicking. Do we have our ducks in a row,
Yeah.
is my question.
To answer that.
Okay, to expand upon that, when my idea was accepted by the board, I then suggested a lawyer who was different than the normal one we use. And he wrote up an article. Myself, Steve, and Donna read the article and agreed with it and went forward with it. Sometime after that, I got a call that the dollar per year was not lawful because it was encumbering money in the future. So therefore, my decision was to make it $1 for 99 years rather than $99 over the 99-year period. So the reason that that amendment was made was because it did not meet statutory muster. It would have been unlawful to do, and it would have failed. Our vote would have then failed because we voted on something that wasn't lawful.
Right.
When we made it lawful, it's concrete. So we'll see how many jackhammers are on the Board of Selectmen.
I'd also, can I add? So what I'd like to add to that as well is that this is one of the reasons why we're having this meeting tonight, right? Is because when this decision came, that we know the warrant article is valid. We had an attorney wrote the warrant article for us, right? So the attorney wrote the warrant article, did a little bit of research, found out there was one error in it. Bert fixed the error at the deliberative session when he went the money-wise, right? So when we got this letter, it was not something that we wanted to do behind closed doors. So we said, let's have a meeting on Friday, so that way we can discuss it in public, right? Because we're full transparency of what's going on, and we can hear from the public on how do you want us to proceed, right? What is your thoughts? What would you like to see from us? And so that's why we're here this evening, to have that discussion and to see what are we going to do to move forward.
Well, I think it's partially answered by that this was originally written by an attorney other than the edit. So I think that partially answers it for us. Bert knows a lot, but I think it helps that to know that, at least for this part. And then I guess we find out on Monday what they cite for inappropriateness, I guess.
Right, and it wasn't until today that we found out, that Bert found out that Mr. O'Connell had decided that he rescinded that, right? So,
We'll still see if-
and it's one of those things, right, that I had said that I have full faith, but I've also, I'm not naive, right? And I've had to deal with this all year, and the different consequences that I've had to face every time the school district has, so to speak, won a battle. Like when the SRO, then we got penalized for the CTE. We had the warrant article. I lost the Opera House for the recycle percussion and that event, right? So every time the school district has been successful with something, there's been some repercussions. Now, that could just be a coincidence, I'm not sure, right? But there's always been something. You know, the same thing with, I was told that my field hockey field is encroaching on town property, right? And so there's, you know, and if I was gonna, you know, and I said, right now I'm not worried about my field hockey field. I'm worried, and this is what I had said to Hunter, right now I want to educate my kids first. And then in the summer, I'll worry about my field hockey field and having it surveyed or doing whatever I need to do. But right now, my focus needs to be on educating the students. And every time I'm drawn away from something, it's pulling from that. Every time we have to pay for something, it's pulling from the education of our kids. So we've been really trying to focus on not having to pay legal fees, because where's the money going to come from? When we sat at our budget meeting, and I just want to take Caleb's head off the chopping block for a moment. I went to the bus barn and I saw the conditions that the bus drivers were in, and having to do their inspections on a dirt floor. And if you've seen our bus drivers are older, and they've been doing it for very many years. They have no heat, no ventilation, and it was just, the room that they sat in was actually built by Ed, and he got the equipment from the town dump and on the side of the road. That is not conditions that I feel some of the most important people in our school district should have to be in, right? And so that's when I went to them and I said, you need to come see this. And they invited a select board member to come to this, to see with us, to walk around, and they didn't show up. And then we get accused, well, you didn't call them and reschedule. Well, it's not my responsibility. If you miss an appointment, you call me and reschedule. I don't call you to reschedule. But I took ownership. I'm sorry. I did not do that. I didn't call, right? But when we had our meeting and Mr. Kessler was there, I said to every single one of my administration, the building principals, the directors, I said to every single one of them, when you come before the board to give your presentation, I want you to say exactly what everything looks like and exactly what you need, because we need to be transparent. Because most people had no idea what the bus barn even looked like, let alone went down that way, right? So it wasn't until we brought the attention, because I honestly believe we need to be full transparent. Mr. Kessler was at that meeting, never once said anything about the thought of raising our rent. He sat through our budget process, never once mentioned raising our rent. That would have been the perfect time to say something, because then we could have voted on it. They waited till after our vote was completed and the people voted on it. Then all of a sudden, our rent was being raised, right? And so, so this evening, the big thing for this evening is us to bring this out, to be transparent and say, this is what's going on. How do you want us to move forward? Because we're more than willing to move forward. I will fight for the rights for our kids and for our staff 100%, right? But one of the things that I want everybody to know is that we are doing our best not to touch anything educational-wise, right? Because we need to educate our kids. And so getting an attorney, doing all that stuff, that's costly. And so we're looking at, okay, what can we do so that way it's not impacting it? Because our budget's been set. It's not like I can go back and say, all right, I need another, $100,000 because I need to pay lawyer fees because I got to fight the town. I'm hoping that on Monday they say, okay, we're done. You guys can have the bays. Let's move forward, right? Because it's the 16th of June, and they want me out on the 30th, and I have summer school starting, where a lot of my most vulnerable kids are going, and I'm going to be locked out of my bus barn, right? That's ridiculous. And so when I see that, I'm going to battle that.
Mr. Ring, you had your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I just want to get back to a comment that Bert made with the fire department and the warrant that they put on. The reason for that, and I helped push that, in any town, you don't take away your emergency services and your police, your fire, ambulance, any of that stuff that support and take care of your residents. That is like number one, and take care of the town. They went to the right chain and got blocked by a dictator and never went to the select board the way it should have. That's why we went around to show the public there's a problem. That was the only reason why they did that. Other than that, they would have followed the steps, the way they should have. And then the back door at the delivery session of trying to deny that again was, I don't have a nice word for that, but anyways. And then getting back to the delivery session this last year, when the select board were asked a question, what are you going to be doing with that garage when we kick the buses out? And not one made a comment. They ignored the question of the public. That should tell you right then and there that there's a problem. And I suggest that this board here cover yourself every step of the way, because that problem is still there, and you're going to get it on the back return when the regular board can't see it.
Thank you.
There's so much behind this. There's so much going on here that's something. Bert knows a ton of things, and I know a bunch, and Steve knows there's so much more than just this on that whole aspect of my sign, which I don't do that as a representative of the school board anyways. So I'm on the zoning board too, so I sit kind of on that side and do stuff here. At the end of the day, I represent the people of Newport, and if Donna was to come to me and say, hey, I have this great idea, it's going to be great for the school, but it's going to hurt our town, I'm going to vote no matter what, because I represent everyone in this town to the best of my ability, and I feel sometimes it's a one-sided thing. I'm thinking, okay, what are we going to do here that's going to be best for the kids and best for our town? And then decisions are made down the road that are hey, what's going to be good for us? Hey, let's bring all these housing places in because we'll get $10,000 a unit, and the school doesn't get any of that money. We get the liability of any of these kids that come in, and then we have to go to you, the voters, and say, oh, we need more money. Well, I thought you just got $10,000 a unit up to $1 million for these units. Oh no, that was the town. The town got that money so they can make the sidewalks look nice so Hunter can, say he's done such a great job. Or we can put a rec center in and whatever. I have hope in 3 of the selectmen down there after this last election that things are going to change. I've said it publicly many times, whether it was here or the show me and Steve do or whatever, that Donna works for this board, and it seems like the select board work for the town manager when that's not how it works. We are voted to represent you. You reach out to us and say, hey, what's going on here? I don't like this. You put your input in, and it's our job to react to those comments. And, you know, whatever you guys think, hey, we should do this, should do that. Okay, legally we can't do this. Or, why'd you make that decision? I can back up any decision I ever make, and I don't have to think about it. I was like, oh, it's because of this. Well, that was the wrong decision. Well, at the time, the decision was made because this was the information we had. Now new information's come out, and you're right, we could do it differently. I love, the biggest thing I love, one of the biggest things I love about Donna is the transparency aspect, and that's why we want this meeting here. That's why we want the meeting with the select board here, is so that the public can see it. There's no hidden backdoor deals, there's none of that. It's just, this is what we want to do, this is what we need to do. I think the bus barn thing will get worked out. I think especially if the public can put enough pressure on the select board, they'll do the right thing. I don't think for a second a majority of them want to go against the will of people. But and I heard there's lots of things that may be coming down the road really soon to change that. I feel like Newport's lost its way, and in my personal opinion, Tim Beard, not the school board member or whatever, just me, we lost its way when we hired the town manager we have right now. Newport, I love Newport. I live in Newport because I love Newport. I grew up in Croydon. I went to Newport School. I graduated Newport School in 2001, and I've lived here pretty much that whole time. Why? Because I love Newport. Our community is unique. If something needs to get done, we get it done. You reach out to businesses, they step up all the time. Whether it's LaValle, whoever, everyone steps up. People come together. I feel like we're kind of like drifting apart, and it kind of revolves around this one person that I've had many conversations with employees that work in that building, and they're not happy. We've lost so much staff that we've had for years. People have worked here for 20 years, 25 years, that have said, the heck with this, I'm done. Well, why is that happening? There's only one reason that's happening, and you can't say, well, they decided to move on, or they were bad employees. So your turnover has been 80% of your employees. You have 80% of your employees that are here for 30 years, 25 years, whatever, were bad employees. No, you have a bad manager who knows his contract's up in a year, honestly think he wants to be fired because then they'll have to pay him the rest of his $150,000, $60,000, which at this point, I'd take a 1-year hit on my taxes to get rid of him. I've had enough. I've been told that if you stand in his way, he'll run you over. Well, here I am. I'm standing in the way. Try to run me over. I have nothing to lose. I am very vocal. I have a big platform of a lot of people that love me, hate me. I don't matter, but I always stand up for what I think is right and for the people of this town, and I always will. And if that person's in the way of what I think is best for our community, then good luck trying. So for me, we need as many people to reach out. Whether you can show up Monday or not, it'd be good if we can fill it. The best turnout we had is when they wouldn't get the police contract negotiated and our officers were going to quit. And it was amazing when you got, 40 plus business owners to show up angry, telling the selectmen, you better do your job and you better fix it. And a week later, well, magically it was fixed. That this is what we need. We need people to show up and say, enough's enough. You work for us. We work for you. And we all here are trying to do the best we can. We're trying to fix education, and we're messing with this stuff. That CTE is, if any of you watch graduation, 2/3, I guess it was a class night, but 2/3 of our graduating class this year have completed CTE courses and have certificates in those. And so CTE is one of the most important things we have. The state's funding more than 80% of it. Our town overwhelmingly passed it. That's my biggest concern, because I truly think the bus thing will fix itself. But I'm really concerned about the CTE thing. And it needs to stop. And yeah, we need the public's help. We can't do it ourselves. We really do. They need to remember who they work for. It's we the people. It's our government. It was set up that way, and the opinions we have we have the most impact here in Newport, right? You vote on the state level or the government national level. It's like, is it really going to change anything? But here you do. You voted. You voted for this. You vote for our budgets. You vote that your voice matters, and they need to remember your voice matters. They represent you. 100%. They represent you.
Tim, you sound like you're trying to take over my position. May I give you some notes? Please come to vote.
I would just like to say, if anybody cannot make it, give your selectman a call tomorrow. Ring their phone, send them an email, let them know how you feel.
Yeah, load up their message lines over there.
It has to stop. These people that are trying to do a job educating our children are being distracted, and it's not good.
And we're lucky if we have any bus drivers. They're not getting any younger.
Challenge as it is.
And Tim, by the way, do you happen to know why that money that's coming in from so much per unit isn't for the entire town instead of just the selectmen?
Apparently that's how it was set up.
That would be a good question.
One of the county
for the state.
commissioners asked the same question. He said,
Yeah.
county doesn't get any money, that school doesn't get
Yeah,
any money. Town
it
does.
should be,
Are we talking the $10,000?
Yeah.
that should be across the board.
The $10,000 per unit is in serious jeopardy.
I know. But regardless, that's not my point. My point is, if that money is coming in because we, the taxpayer, are gonna make sure that these units go in, that should be for we, the taxpayer, across the board.
Should be for part of the
It
general
will come into
account.
the taxpayer, but it won't come into the school system.
But it should, because we, the taxpayer, try to support our school system.
That's true, but it is to the town. The town would have to gift it to us.
Why? Why is it just to the town? That's what I
Well,
don't
I think there's a
understand.
bigger thing on a political level there that we probably shouldn't get into, but I think it's a carrot that they dangle to get towns to put up large numbers of housing, because it's workforce housing.
Yeah.
And so,
Whose pocket it's like.
so there's a carrot that's dangled out there. And this was said at the actual select board meeting by one of the gentlemen representing one of the building companies. He said, point blank, and you can go watch it on tape, up until a year or two ago, nobody would allow this type of housing to be built in their town, but now the payment, I didn't say payments, but basically the incentives is what he said. The incentives are right now to where now the towns are accepting them. The incentives being the $10,000 per unit, but that's only, there's only so much for the whole entire state. And so that's why I say it's more of a political thing that I think goes beyond the school district.
I think it might be worth looking into. I mean,
Oh, I agree with you,
we,
but,
the people, are the town,
yes, ma'am.
not the school board, not the select.
And again, that's my own personal
Not the
opinion from
county.
listening to the briefing
Yeah.
from one of the gentlemen that was talking at the select board meeting.
Might be worth a call to the state, that's all I'm saying.
Real quick, before we move on, I did receive a letter from a citizen that she asked to be read, so if there are no objections, I will read it. It's from Becky Nelson, and she also wrote it to the select board. Good afternoon, select board and school board. Mr. Morris, I ask that you share this email with your board members, as your email was the only current email I could find on the website. I just read the letter sent to the school board regarding the bus barn fail by the people at the last annual school meeting to come to an agreement regarding use of the current premises at the town garage. The selectmen mentioned the space is needed for town use, so the buses will be booted, even though we, the people, voted to allow the current arrangement to continue for a lease of $1 over 99 years. Even if the vote of the people isn't legal, the intent is certainly there. I am sick of my right hand struggling against my left hand. We, the voters of Newport, should have the final say in what happens in this little town. I'm sick of our hired administrators proposing actions that should have the full support of the taxpayers, and in turn our elected officials forging ahead and disregarding the intent of the voters. I want to see this bus issue resolved immediately and without my having to pay more in school taxes, my right hand, in order to pay a lease to the town, in parentheses, my left hand, to which I already pay plenty of property taxes. If you, quote, need the space, I assume for ambulances, this is directed at the select board, why not use the old armory, current rec center, that you, parentheses, we own when it is emptied? Open up a wall for ingress, egress, and repair whatever necessary and keep the buses where they are. Or if there are no plans for the building, approved by taxpayers perhaps, donate it from my left hand, the town, to my right hand, so that they can open up the walls and have 3 or 4 bus bays. I'm so sick of the us and them squabbles and the piles of legal fees that all this stuff is costing us. Me. There is no us or them, there is just one I, Newport. One town, 2 wings, stop it, fix it, and don't push it so one side feels compelled to go to court about yet again another petty squabble. This has gone too far. I am totally disgusted. Feel free to read this in public at either of your meetings if you feel is appropriate. Most sincerely, Rebecca Nelson, Newport citizen. So I think that kind of sums up how all of the comments that we received from the citizens here in the audience, Phil. So thank you, Ms. Nelson, for participating. Do we have any other questions or concerns? Yes, ma'am.
Tell us when the select board meeting is on Monday, at what time? Could you
6 a.m.
say that for the public?
6:30. 6:30 at the town hall. Town office on Sunapee Street.
Where I'll stand Monday morning with my son.
Yes, sir.
I know you guys, had a call to action, I think, on Facebook to come to this meeting. Are you going to do the same for the Monday meeting, or have you already done that?
Well, this is kind of our call to action, is to get your feedback, as Ms. Magoon had asked, and then also to say, if you support us, come and show your support. If you're definitely, if you're the 700 that voted, make sure that your voice is heard. So yes, we will. And I don't think the school can the school technically do that to encourage to go to the.
It's not a vote.
You could say that you're going to be there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could say that, because I can post, just like I did with this, I can post out that we're having a meeting that, on the
Right.
books, that we're gonna be going to that.
We cannot,
The school board or the school board Facebook group, whatever, send something out to remind people that, like, if they don't watch this meeting or they're not here, they might see it.
I can do it.
I'm sure somebody can enter
I was gonna say, all you guys that are on Facebook, send it out to all the
That's
people you
right.
communicate with.
We can all do it as individuals as well.
Yeah, it doesn't need us as a school board officially to do it. The citizenry can do it even better than we do.
Well, I think one of the things I also do too is that when we have a meeting of the importance of this, I also send it out to all of our families. So that may be something else that they're referring to, because all families will get emails saying that we're going to be attending the meeting on Monday to join us. So I'll do that, and then I post that to both of our, the Facebook page, as well as I post it to What's Up Newport.
John, I've got a question for you. Is there any chance you can get together with Steve, however it would work, and get some mass publicity out there, TV and radio?
Oh, I'm gonna put on, well, I can't do radio, but I'm gonna put on whatever I can, certainly. But this will be reposted tonight.
Great.
I'm here and going upstairs and chucking it up.
Okay.
on issues in the community, in the state, government cannot spend taxpayers' money to advertise and support issues. To put them in front of the people, yes, but to sway the people, no.
So we could just say, show up,
Right.
or the school board will be.
And I hope they don't include the lights in this room, because they may go out all of a sudden.
I just want to close with whatever and just thank everyone that showed up tonight. Obviously, it shows you care, and I know there's a lot of people that couldn't show up tonight, obviously, that care as well. It's just one of those things, and I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like this may be a good thing out of all the bad. It brings the community together and be like, hey, listen, this is our community. We live in this community. There's some of you who don't live in this community that, like, a lot of us have been in this community a very long time, and our vote, our say, the time you put into this community and everything else, like, that should matter. And I know it does to most of the selectmen. I think sometimes just people need a reminder, like, oh, that's right, I forgot. I actually work for you, the people. But I just really appreciate everyone coming out tonight, you know, and everyone that does share about the meeting on Monday and watches it. This meeting tonight is, you know, we all appreciate the feedback from everyone. It's so much better having these meetings with people in the room than sitting here by ourselves, wondering if anyone's paying attention. So thank you very much.
I don't have anything else to add. I will be there on Monday. Congratulations to our graduates.
Yes.
Yep.
Don't get to usually to say that the day after. Usually it's 2 weeks later or a month later. So a very big congratulations to the graduates and their families.
And great to know so many have gotten their certificate in CTE.
Yeah, those.
It's a great program. It probably keeps a lot of them in school.
Sure does.
Definitely does.
Do you have anything? No.
I'm all set now. I'll have more to say on Monday, I'm sure.
Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything that you suggest, please reach out to me. I'm always available. Just send me an email. If you need to meet with me, I can, meet with you. Now that summer's here, I think my schedule's going to be a little bit more flexible. I hope. I don't know. I have a large list of things that I need to get through this summer, so you know what that's like, right? It's like the weekend. You start it, and then Sunday night you said, oh man, I didn't do this, this, and this, so hopefully I can get through it.
Can't you just switch some of that over to the honey-do list?
Yeah, I wish. I wish. But please reach out to me if you have any concerns or questions, or you need to know something that's going on. I try to be fully transparent. I try to go on What's Up Newport and answer questions that anybody has, as well as if there's information. I really would like, if you hear something, instead of, because I know sometimes people post and say, hey, does anybody know about this or what's going on with this? Feel free to send me an email and say, hey, what's going on with this, right? Because sometimes when you post things on What's Up Newport, you may not get the correct information. I'll make sure, or from Tim. Don't listen to him either. Come directly to me.
One time.
Twice you did this to me.
Here we go.
I move that we go into non-public.
Oh, I didn't get to say that.
Oh, sorry.
But thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate your support, as do the staff and students, so thank you.
I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I will work on a timeline this weekend, and I'll bring copies on Monday. I can maybe send, if I can get it on a short enough, like PowerPoint or a screenshot, I'll ask if Tim can post it on social media, just so everybody sees it. I mean, it's just, it's open knowledge that anybody can get from watching the meetings, but I'll go back through my notes and try to lay it out there. And again, I think in this process, we have tried to be fair and honest. We've apologized. Jenna and both Donna apologized for the miscommunication and the lack of communication initially. And so I just want to say thank you for the 700 that voted in favor of this. And if you have the time to come out and support, and it doesn't need to be an angry thing or anything else like that. It's just like, it shouldn't have to be. It should be like, hey, don't forget, we voted, and this is what we want, so figure it out. And I think we're willing to figure it out, and I'm pretty sure most of the select board probably is as well. And like Tim said, we should be able to get past that. And also, when you're also talking about the bus barn, don't forget we have the permitting CTE land requirement that the town needs to help us push forward before we lose money, taxpayer money, to having to reschedule the beginning of construction. On that note,
Send that timeline to me and I can.
Before we adjourn, I do have a question in that direction. It's my understanding, it could be wrong, but my understanding is the building permit process is to prove that the structure and its mechanical and electrical contents meet the state code.
Right.
What does that have to do with the piece of land where the damn thing's built?
Good question.
That'd be a good question, maybe we ask on Monday.
To the best of my knowledge, the building permit has nothing to do with the site set. That's a zoning commission, I believe. So I want to raise that question, get it out there. That's really nagging at me.
The property, the land is not being used right now, it hasn't been being used. So it's, I mean, I've heard it so many times when somebody's mentioned on Facebook, how come they didn't get a permit to do the town hall? And somebody else comes on and says, well, the town don't need a permit.
They don't
It
charge
does.
the permit. To the,
State law requires that they get a permit.
to the people that are making.
They need the permit in order to have the safety functions for public place adhered to. But they forgave the $2,700 fee.
Which is standard practice in this town. I can show you that email.
And also, you know, the select board is on the radio every Tuesday morning from 8 to 9, okay? And there is an hour open there if you ask Steve. School board, get on from 9 to 10. Because that was Kevin O'Neill had from 8 to 10. Because I go into Carnuts, you know, from 7 to 8. But there's another hour open. And
That's a good show too, Mike.
what's that?
You do a good job with that.
Yes, I do, have a lot of fun. But there is there, and there's information that you could keep out with the public going on, you know, if anybody wanted to go on for a school board. I'm positive, you know, Steve will let you come on after the select board got off, and,
He's been pretty fair with us.
Wayne, do you allow, does Steve allow, not this Steve, allow calls into your show?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. I could not get through Tuesday. I dialed 10 times.
He just added a caller ID.
You called on me one time.
Excuse me?
You called on me when I was on the radio one time.
Hey, I asked you
Yes.
about that.
Just putting it out there.
Now, wait a minute now. That was then, we're now.
I only say that
my-
to say that I believe
The
Steve.
point I was making, the selectmen were on there talking, they had it, and it was not a forum. The calls coming in were blocked by Steve. And that's the first time that that's happened to my knowledge. So I do not understand nor know where the power is coming from to change how we govern ourselves. The calling in has been there since a long time. And I can call in for your car show, but I can't call in for the bus barn? Wow. Now this is,
Calling on me.
is this Hunter Biden? Am I confused there? Have I got names screwed up or what?
I was gonna go into non-public.
Roll call vote.
Oh, actually, I
Darryl,
just need to be
yes.
specific, 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, D and E.
Now do it right. Darrell Jones, aye.
Bert Spalding Senior, aye.
Tim Beard, aye.
Jenna Darling, aye.
Steve Morris, aye. This concludes our public portion of the meeting.
This concludes our
I appreciate everybody very much for coming out tonight. Have a safe weekend.
Don't forget to call your selectmen.
Don't forget